Hey, what's up guys, Sir Emanon here, and welcome to another video. So this is going to be another episode of Road to 1000 DuelingBook rating, but this time we're actually going to be on a deck that I haven't really played a lot of historically or for this series, and that is going to be Sky Striker, which is vastly different from the Tribal Loyalist deck that we've been playing a lot this format. So yeah, I know obviously you guys can probably tell that normally I am a combo enthusiast. I don't typically play a lot of control decks, but every once in a while I do like to return to them just because they do a good job, I think, of kind of refreshing my technical play and just just sharpening my fundamentals in general. Because I think control decks just do a good job of teaching the game at a basic level, which is a skill set that is good to apply to any type of deck. Doesn't really matter what deck it is, right? So yeah, today we're going to be on Sky Striker with the DPE package, of course, and that's a deck I think that is pretty well positioned in this format, and is one that I want to give a shot because, again, I haven't really played a whole lot in the past, so feel free to point out any misplays in addition to the ones that I am going to talk about in this video. But yeah, here's going to be my current rating and record, and our opponent today is going to be on Virtual World, so let's go ahead and get started without any further ado. So we win the RPS here, but we are blinding second, so all that really did was just give our opponent more intel on our build. However, our opening hand going second is going to be Rose, Ray, and then 3 hand traps, Nibiru, Imperm, Ash. So, despite the fact that we don't have any spell cards in our striker deck, not really much of a problem. We have lots of ways to hinder our opponent, and then engine cards, so we can't really ask for too much more. And then their hand going first is going to be Ash, GG, Italy, Chalice, and Lily. So their hand's also very good. They have multiple ways to play past hand traps and a couple of their own defensive cards, which is quite solid. So they're going to begin things off with the activation of Italy, which is going to summon out the Lulu from deck. And then here they're going to activate Lily, which I let resolve because I run the risk of them having Lulu in hand hard drawn already if I stop this with Ash. And I'm trying to Ash the Lulu to prevent them from getting access to Chuche. And speaking of hand trap timings, I do just kind of want to talk about something that I feel is a pretty interesting topic that not many people talk about. And I wanted to run it by you guys and see what you guys think. So let me know in the comments what you think of this. But I feel like hand trapping versus combo matchups differs a lot based on what deck you're playing, right? So if you're playing a control deck like I am right here, I think something to factor in is, the grind game, which is a lot of your win condition or a lot of, the situations that you find yourself in, even if you don't intend on grinding a lot. So a lot of what you have to worry about is kind of preventing your opponent from actually accruing a lot of follow-up, because even if you stop their play, if they can just play again next turn, it's not really going to do a lot, which is part of the reason why certain hand traps like Drill aren't really seen a ton in these types of decks. But on the other hand, if I was playing a combo deck right here, I'd be more incentivized to let them just kind of full commit and then hit them at the highest impact point to like maybe combo Nib and Imperm. And there's a lot of points in this video which you'll see where I can kind of illustrate this sort of concept, and there's ways in which like this works out and this doesn't work out based on the deck you're playing. So I'd like to hear your thoughts if like you kind of think about this based on what decks you guys play, or if you guys just hand trap at the same spot versus X deck, right? But yeah, carrying on here, they're gonna go ahead and activate Qinglong and search for Lulu, and they're going to pitch the Ash because right here they do have the setup for the Ultimate Zulkin if they want to raise Lulu's level by banishing Chuche, and then they can set Chalice and keep going. But yeah, they did this as a safety net if Lulu got stopped, in case they couldn't like search a spell trap, which it does get stopped because I do chain Ash to it. And so right here, they're going to just follow up with a GG. They're going to target the Lulu, sending Qinglong, summoning itself, and then they're going to Chuche to raise the level of a Lulu, and then they're going to go into the Zulkin. So here they're going to go ahead and set Chalice and then activate Zulkin. I do elect to Imperm here rather than let the Crystal Wing come out, which is potentially debatable. I did want the token to be a bit smaller, and I figured that like maybe this is the extent of their turn. Kind of forgetting the fact that they actually hadn't normal summoned yet. So maybe you can argue that like I should have just waited for them to summon out to the Crystal Wing and then hit them with the Nibiru afterward. But I mean, this way also the token is smaller, which definitely could be relevant. But yeah, they normal summon Lulu, and right here I don't want them to. It's kind of weird because I do choose to Nibiru here after like thinking for a bit. It might have been worth it to just let them go into like their Synchro 6, which would have been like Stardust Charge or Coral Dragon, probably Stardust Charge. Because what would they have realistically drawn to extend them? Because like they don't have a VW to target if they do that. So like even if they draw Lalo, then it's not going to really amount to a whole lot unless it's the set specifically the Kowloon. So like maybe that's what I think that's what I was like trying to play around the most. And I mean like at the end of the day, if I Nibiru here, then it's still the end of the turn, which is not too bad. So I played a little bit like fast and loose with the hand traps. I could have timed them maybe in such a way where I could have like preserved one of these, because I feel like committing all three of them turn one was a bit hasty. It did do the job of like minimizing their follow up, because all they really have is Qinglong and they have the GG add back. So like as long as I can stick a DPE, then I'm able to kind of just curtail their engine a bit, or like stymie their engine, right? But yeah, they're gonna go ahead and just pass here, adding back Lulu. So we draw Chalice, and right here, I don't do a very good job of playing around Chuche, which is like what I kind of assume to be set. So we kind of talk about that. Again, I'm like not really well practiced with this deck, so I'd like to kind of spend a bit more time on it. Not sure how much I would actually dedicate to this deck, but I do want to explore it a bit more. So yeah, we go ahead and normal summon Ray, and then we go into Hayate, and then I neglect to summon out Rose on either of these summons, which I think is a mistake, because if I'm presuming that this is a Chuche, then I don't have really any way to threaten it, because like the Striker engine isn't really dealing with that right now. And like because of that, I would need to rely on like DPE, but I need to go into Verte, and if that gets popped by Chuche, then I'm in trouble. Whereas like if I summon out Rose, then I have the ability to like go like battle phase, Hayate attack, send like a Widow or a Shark or something, and then like I can attack with other stuff. In the main phase 2, I can turn Rose into Kagari to add back, and then I could turn the Hayate and the Nibiru into Verte, and if that gets popped there, then I could just turn the Kagari on the field into Shizuku, and then just play like with the Striker engine at least. But like the reason why, if this was Chuche, I have to get rid of it is that like it's a free target for Lulu that I can't really interact with too much. Granted, maybe I shouldn't have been thinking it was a Chuche much at all, because like clearly it wasn't Kowloon. And so that means like they would have had to have hard drawn the second copy, which is not the most likely to happen. So I think maybe I was like thinking too much about like this being Chuche, but even with that in mind, I didn't play properly around it. So it's kind of weird. I was like thinking one thing, but playing kind of like something else. Because right here, I'm kind of just like conserving resources in my hand, and then like committing into like funneling into Verte, which wasn't the best way to approach this. So definitely should just summon out Rose here. But yeah, they're gonna go ahead and actually Chalice my Hayate, which I'm actually totally fine with, because it just lets me get a free pass into Verte. So if like they just chose to let Hayate descend, like it wouldn't have really added much that would have like changed the equation. It just would have given me another chance to like change my mind on the Rose play pretty much, because like I would have been able to send and then like summon Kagari. So maybe that's what I was also thinking. Now that I think about it, like I did play this match not too long ago, like a couple hours ago, but yeah, I think maybe that was my thought process, was like, okay, I could just like test the waters, and then like if I can add back off Kagari, then I can go for the Rose play, and then like I could just turn the Kagari and then the Nibiru into Verte, and then if that gets popped, I can turn the Rose into the Shizuku, which is all like fair enough. Honestly, it achieves the same thing. So maybe scratch what I said before. Maybe it's like that's what I was going for. I think that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise, like holding the Rose just definitely doesn't accomplish anything. But anyways, none of that happened. We just got Chalice instead on the Hayate, which again lets us get DPE out for free. And then we can go and set Chalice, which puts us in a pretty strong position. So they are going to top deck Imperm here, which does answer the Enforcer. But if they do want to use it, then they have to either relinquish the search off of Qinglong or the Lulu. So obviously Qinglong with one card doesn't really do... It's not really the best, especially when you don't have like other cards in field already to target with your VW names. So yeah, they are going to Imperm, and then I choose to activate the DPE, because if I don't, then I run the risk of running into Zeus, because like if Zeus is able to wipe my board, then they have 2 activations of it, then Chalice won't be enough. So I just want to keep the DPE train rolling. And I know the last card in hand is Lulu, so I don't have to fear like tactics or anything. So they're going to go ahead and Qinglong here, and then they're going to search and then pitch Nian Nian, which is like their way into Zeus, right? Because they can just normal summon, special out Nian Nian, and then go into a rank 3. So yeah, this is like pretty much what I expected, and I anticipated this. So that's why DPE popped there. And then so yeah, they're just gonna pass here, and we draw into a Widow Anchor for turn, which is not too bad. We don't have a lot of spells in graveyards, so I was trying to think of a line actually to go for lethal right here, because I was thinking like, okay, if I can like get 3 spells in grave, I can like Widow Anchor take and then just normal summon Rose, and that's game. But not the case. So we go ahead and just draw phase Chalice, so we don't have to really negatively trade our DPE. And then we can just kind of keep going here, normal summon rows. And from here, it's pretty straightforward as far as how we can navigate this game state. So we can just draw with the Celestial into Shark Cannon Callby, which is not too bad. Go into Hayate, and then we can go and pop the DPE. I do this to bring out rows from the graveyard, excuse me, but there's not really much of a reason to do that. I mean, it does get more damage on the board, which is fair, but it does mean I have to like burn more resources to get back into like my striker engine, or rather to like keep my main monster zone as vacated as possible, apart from DPE, of course. So yeah, maybe a bit too much value placed on damage from my end. But yeah, we're gonna just send the Widow Anchor here because, like, again, we could just freely add back off Kagari, and they're just gonna decide to concede anyways. So we're gonna go ahead and take that one. So they're gonna go first again in game number 2 here, and their opening hand is gonna be Lao, Chalice, Cosmic Cyclone, E-Telly, and Lulu. So their hand again is quite nice. They have E-Telly and 2 names again, drawing Chalice twice in a row, pretty good. And then our hand going second is going to be Widow Anchor, Valor, Rose, Destiny, or Fusion Destiny, and Nibiru. So our hand is looking quite good again. We have Valor Dib, but no Ash this time. So I can't really stop them from accessing Chuche here. So I play my hand traps a little bit differently, although I think that's a bit misguided, and you'll kind of see what I mean by that. And this is why I think the hand trap discussion is so interesting, because I don't apply the same consistent practice. So that's definitely something that I should kind of like pick a camp and stick to it. Like pick a philosophy as far as like how I'm gonna hand trap. Again, that's kind of the reason why I want to play control decks more, because like these are the things that I'm not used to thinking about as much, because again I just play a lot of combo decks. So yeah, I'm like used to hand trapping like in the same way. I have like a habit of like when I want to hand trap what, but again like the deck dictates I feel when you should probably hand trap. So yeah, anyways, they're gonna go ahead and activate Lulu after Italian for Nian Yan, sending the Qinglong, adding Chuche. And then they're gonna grab a Lily here, so they have the access to, or they have access to the setup for Crystal Wing, of course. So yeah, they're gonna go ahead and Chuche to raise Lulu, and then we saw them add Chuche, so that's like just free for the Zulkin into Crystal Wing. And here I decide not to like Valor this. I just choose not to, because like here I'm going to like nib Valor, which I mean is like arguable if that was even correct, because like again I didn't do that in game 1, so like why would I do that in game 2? Again, I don't have like a great justification for that, but I do know that like they still have more resources in hand that compared to last time, so I do decide to wait. They do send Xuanwu off this Lao, and then they elect not to summon anything back. And once they send Xuanwu, it makes me hesitate on this Nibiru right here, because I was thinking, all right, maybe I should like Nibiru Valor here, but I was thinking, okay, well, what if they just go like Xuanwu, and then like bring back Lulu, and then they have Nian Yan yet. But they would have to discard the last card in their hand. They already used Chuche and Grave, so they couldn't really do a whole lot after this. So I just should have thought more about like what they could have actually done with the Xuanwu, rather than just being like, oh, they have Xuanwu, so I should hold Nibiru. So yeah, this ends up being important because of the fact that I let Shenshen hit the board, and that's like one of the follow-up plays I should just be avoiding at all costs, because like Shenshen's just the biggest problem in this deck to deal with. Like even if I can Nibiru clear it off the board, like it being a name to target for free on the follow-up turn is like one of the biggest reasons why it's like as good as it is, especially into control matchups. So yeah, I definitely think I should just Nibiru'd after Lelo. Like even though they had like theoretically another extender, because it wasn't going to really accomplish that much. Because again, they would have 2 tuners because they didn't have GG access this hand. So yeah, I definitely messed up there. So yeah, we Nibiru, they Crystal Wing, they Valor. They forgot that they just set this turn. Otherwise, it would have just popped the Crystal Wing, and that would have been pretty good. But yeah, we go ahead, and they're thinking if they want to commit more, but they just set Chalice and pass. We draw Imperm, and like this hand shouldn't lose, but I make like a couple of misplays. Like this is the first misplay, and they make another like really egregious one later. But yeah, this hand should not be losing to like just Chalice Chuche when they have like no GG add back. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead, and I guess that was a spoiler that we do lose this game, but I mean it's good to go over like the games that you lose for sure, because like that's what makes you a better player, as long as like you're willing to actually analyze your mistakes. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and normal summon out Rose and then go into Hayate. I was surprised they actually didn't Chuche this, like the Rose, but they're gonna Chuche this anyways. Yeah, they decided to just pop. And then I'm like, okay, cool, Fusion Destiny, that's pretty good, because now we can just kind of simplify we already simplified the game state enough, and then we can just kind of like use DPE to pick apart the remaining cards. So we DPE here, and I made the mistake of putting it in defense position, because what I don't think about is the fact that like if they bring back Shen, it won't be able to attack over the DPE if it's in attack position with my Heroes Engrave, but if I put it in defense, it can. So that definitely is something that I didn't think about in this matchup interaction, which, again, this is not a matchup I've played a lot because I haven't played this deck a lot. But yeah, I know VW has been historically also not a great matchup for Striker, just because of like the advent of Shen Chuche control, trading pretty well against the Striker cards. But I do think DPE helps to kind of combat that in Striker's favor. So even though I still think it's not the greatest matchup, it's not like an unwinnable matchup by any means. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and Enforcer. So this was a mistake too. I don't know why I set these cards before just like using Enforcer pop, because I run the risk of like something just going awry. I can't really think of a great example off the top of my head as far as like what would punish this, but like this doesn't, like I don't get rewarded for doing it this way either. So yeah, they're going to just simply change Chalice because they want to preserve their Chuche and like their token, which is big, by the way. We have it in chat right here. So yeah, keep that in mind, by the way. They draw a pointer, the Red Lotus return, and then they're going to activate Shen. And here's where I'm like, okay, yeah, if I didn't let this hit the graveyard last turn, then we'd be in a far better position, because now I just kind of know what they're playing with. Because all they would really have is Qinglong, and like they would need to, again, either like relinquish whatever they just search or just get rid of the card they top deck. And that would put me in a much better position, because then like this is just one less threat I have to contend with. But now I have to think about, okay, I have to manage DPE in such a way that I want it to go to grave, and then like this like hinders that. And like because the Spanish is for cost, if I like chain the DPE to the Shen to try and pop the Chuche, they can just chain Chuche, and they don't really have a great way to like really interact with that. So yeah, right here I have the imperm in this column, so that now I can like actually like shut off Shen, and that's like not too bad. But yeah, definitely getting this into grave was like my biggest blunder, and then I make one more mistake that like costs me the game. So yeah, we go ahead. So they go ahead and actually Qinglong for Lulu. Not really a surprise here. And then they are going to Lulu effect to target the Chuche. I chain Enforcer, and then they have to respond if they wish to. So they are going to respond with Chuche. They're going to target my DPE. And then we're going to chain Imperm to negate Shen. So this goes to grave. It was my thought process, at least. So this goes to grave, and then like I can also shut off the Chuche. What I don't do is pop this Imperm and this Chuche for free, because I was like, okay, well now I don't have to worry about my Enforcer just getting banished, but it wouldn't be banished anyways unless if like they went into Fan, which I suppose was a play that like maybe could have happened, but it was unlikely given the hand, because we know they have a Lulu. They just tried to use its effect. I'm gonna be popping the Chuche, so they're gonna have to resort to normal summoning it, and so basically what would happen is like they just have Nyan and the Lulu with no way to like modulate, so they can't go Fan anyways. So I don't benefit from not just popping the Imperm here. The other option was like maybe to pop Nibiru to turn on my Widow Anchor, but I don't have like a way to steal anyways. So yeah, by doing it this way, I leave myself actually really vulnerable, because I actually just totally forgot that they have Nyan in grave. So they can just normal summon normal summon out Lulu, summon Nyan, go Breaksword. And I'm like, oh, well, if they just pop Breaksword and Nibiru, this is game, because this token's 58. So 58 plus 28 is, what is that, 86? So I'm just hoping that they tunnel on Zeus and they don't see the line for game, but they do, which is obviously the correct play. And yeah, we do lose because of that. So if I just kept the DP on field by popping Imperm, we are actually still in this game. But because I messed that up, yeah, we actually just lose. So again, like these are the two mistakes, like the two most glaring mistakes, is not Nibiruing just before Shen comes down, and then following that, just using the DPE to pop my Imperm would have kept me in the game. So yeah, one mistake is not the end of the world usually, but two misplays definitely can be. Even one misplay can cost you the game sometimes. But Yeah, 2 misplays is not really excusable. So that is an L that I will definitely take. That is my own fault, and I will take ownership of that. So moving into game 3, I actually do decide to go first here, even though my list is blind second, because they actually saw that I chose to go second. So I'm thinking I can maybe throw them off because they might expect me to. They might expect me to go second, which is like what the one advantage of winning the die roll. Because like if we lost the die roll and they chose to go first, like they wouldn't know that we were blinding second necessarily. So like maybe their side patterns differ there. But yeah, I'm like, okay, maybe I can catch them off guard by setting in like D barrier, going first. So yeah, speaking of which, our opening hand going first is going to be Shark Cannon, Prosperity, Barrier, Call by the Grave, and Ash Blossom. So we need to find a starter off this Prosperity ASAP. And then their opening hand is going to be Kowloon, Foolish Goods, Order, Chalice, and GG. The Order. If we went second, we would have definitely lost this game. So yeah, they're gonna go ahead, or we're gonna start with the Prosperity right here, and I banished 6 just because I feel desperate to go and find a starter. I was talking to, actually you can see him in the watchers chat, my friend Alan here, who's been playing this deck for a bit, and like he's been banishing 3. So like we talked about this afterward, and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I should just be banishing 3 because like getting rid of Anaconda definitely can hinder your grind game a lot, especially in a matchup like this. So that can just be a major detriment, and I don't really want to run into that situation necessarily. Because like banishing like these types of cards is fine. You can say like on the Phoenix and Girsu stuff. I'm just a huge fan of Girsu in general, but yeah, like these are what I was banishing. But probably just being able to keep in like Verte, Kaina, and like one of like these would have been good. But yeah, we do find many starters, and we do decide to just play DPE control right here. I wasn't sure if this was the best play, but I think that like using DPE to trade with the virtual world engine is probably better because like if I went for the striker stuff, I wouldn't like I'd be going on Shizuku Pass, and like it doesn't actually amount to an extra interruption here because I'd just be getting like engaged for follow up, and I'm like not confident that these cards are gonna be enough to stop VW. I know it's weird because like this is a lot. But you never know because like barrier isn't the greatest. It's like it's pretty good, but like they still can pivot if you just shotgun this too early. So like that's not the greatest. And like Shark Cannon Call by are also kind of mediocre until like you get into the midpoint where you can like start like banishing like Nian Nian or like Shen Shen or whatever. But yeah, anyways, we go for Fusion Destiny because like it represents an interruption by itself and can still pivot back towards the Striker engine if I get good draws off Celestial. So I set 2 and pass. I just don't want to like get majorly blown out by like side deck cards. So I decided this is good enough. So yeah, they draw E-Telly for turn. E-Telly all 3 games, which is pretty good. They actually haven't drawn pot cards at all, which I find to be pretty interesting. But yeah, we go ahead and Ash the Kowloon here because I think like I want to minimize the chances of them being able to like play with their names. I mean, if I were to see this hand, I'd probably still Ash Kowloon here. Let me know what you guys think if you would have like held it for the VW names or like held it for Lulu. But again, like if the name of the game is to try and cut off Chuche, which is kind of the theme that I like, the one thing that I have been consistent with, even though again my hand trap patterns games 1 and 2 differ drastically, the one thing that has been consistent throughout this entire match is that I've been like trying to stop Chuche. Like Chuche is like a card that trades pretty well into DPE. It does require like more setup, but also like this can like get access to Qinglong, which can banish to just negate DPE anyways, and then it's like, well, that just like nullifies probably my best interaction against VW because like popping VW names seems pretty good. So yeah, I think Ashiness is always correct in this instance, I feel. Again, let me know if you guys are more like seasoned in this matchup. But yeah, gonna E-Telly next, and then they're gonna summon that Lulu here, and then they're going to GG target it. And then here I chain DPE, but of course it didn't matter anyways because I had Chalice. So all that all that whole point about like, oh, should I negate Kowloon in the event that they go Qinglong doesn't matter because they had the answer. So that's unfortunate for us. We have to actually contend with their engine now because these cards don't really actually answer the engine directly. So they get to Qinglong, search Lily. They have pretty much free reign over the board until like they commit further. So like their setup and their like follow up is pretty good here. So they summon out Lily here, and then they are going to. I actually found that pretty interesting, by the way. They did not they did not. Oh, I fast forwarded a little bit too much there, but they did not search the Lulu off the Qinglong, which I thought was fascinating. It made me think that the last card was the Lulu. And I was thinking, okay, maybe they synchro away with the Lulu and then try and activate it, and I can call by the grave this Lulu and grave, and that would be good for me. But they just go into battle phase, and I'm like, okay, well, I can D-barrier call synchro, which, I mean, if I did that before to prevent this from coming out, which I know kind of runs contrary to what I was talking about in game 2, but if I do that, then I just get Zeused, and that's not good, because I do think that Enforcer floating is like one of the highest assets right now, because, again, I'm not guaranteed to get back into my engine via Celestial. So I have to bear that in mind. I don't want to like play with like the optimism. I said optimization with the optimism of like just getting back into the engine through random means, because that's never really a reliable strategy, obviously. So I think this was fine because like now they commit into a play. Like if they have Lulu in hand, like I could just call by the grave it, because they didn't start with a Lulu. They E-tellied into it. So yeah, I'm thinking, okay, we can just call by that if that comes to happen. And then we have DPE going to grave, so it comes back. And then GG attacks us for 1,000. Ouch. And then in main phase 2, they're going to Chuche, which is a pretty good bluff because it made me think immediately that they have Chuche in hand. And then we go to set 1, I'm like, okay, that's definitely Chuche. But it was order, so good bluff on their part. Add back Lulu in the end phase off the GG, and then we draw into Afterburner. So in the draw phase, I'm thinking, I always like to say think in draw phase when I play this Dasher pack, or the DP package with Dasher. It's like it makes your opponent always think that like, oh, you're drawing into a monster, which like isn't necessarily the case. But I really am just using this time to think about what my play is going to be. So yeah, here I'm thinking, okay, I can actually go and just threaten battle phase, or threaten Shenshen with a battle phase, because it is going to lose 400 thanks to the DP effect. And then if this is Chuche, like either they just use Chuche and then I can like answer it, which is pretty good, or they just lose their Shenshen and I can play more freely in main phase 2, because like then I don't have to worry about like this not going to grave, right? Which is pretty solid. Also right now their Shenshen is not live, which is pretty important. Like the graveyard effect, that is, because they won't have enough different attributes and types. So yeah, we bring back the Enforcer in standby, and then we're just gonna go straight to the battle phase. And I'm like, okay, they didn't Chuche us, which is pretty good. So now like, if I activate DPE and they change Chuche, it's not really that big of a deal, because then I can just like chain call by the grave, as channeling 3. If it were to be like Enforcer channeling 1, Chuche channeling 2, target DPE, and then I can go call by channeling 3, target the Shenshen, just in case they end up getting another attribute in grave later on. And then I could like just pop call by pop Chuche after this gets popped. So that's not too bad for me. It might not be the best idea to do that, kind of thinking about it more, because it makes it so that like on resolution they can just shuffle back this Shenshen, because it doesn't target what you shuffle back. You just do it on res. So maybe that's not like the best play, but I mean I would still get some value out of it. But yeah, anyways, that's a bit too much about this micro interaction here. It doesn't happen because it's not Chuche. Again, I am thinking a bit more about like theoreticals, but like these are the types of things that like are worth considering as far as just like what you're trying to play around. But thankfully, we popped the order before we committed to any spells, so that's great. We get DPE Graveyard Effect, and then we can go ahead and set 2, activate the Celestial. We draw Rose and Widow, so we go back into our Striker engine. It would have been nice to have like had the Striker engine for the battle phase, but then we wouldn't have been able to attack over the Shenshen. So yeah, I still think this was fine, because we can just go ahead and Afterburner pop just so that they have less targets to, or less VW names to target. And then we can summon Rose, go into Shizuku, set Widowmaker, and then go for Engage. So now we have Shark Cannon, Widowmaker, Call by the Grave, DPE against what we know is Lulu and a Qinglong and Grave, and right now a Shenshen that is not live. And here they top deck Impermanence again. This is like similar to game 1 pretty much. And then here I'm thinking in draw phase if I want to actually answer this Shenshen, just because like I want to make sure that I use DPE optimally, and then like I want to just not have to worry about like using DPE at a wonky time to make Shark Cannon live. I kind of forget that I have Call by the Grave step. I can just Call by the Grave Shenshen anyways. But yeah, like right here I'm kind of like thinking about the Shark Cannon a bit more. So I'm like, okay, let's Shark Cannon this so that I don't have to worry about like vacating my main monster zone. Like just to get this, live if I need to. And then I can just bring back the DPE. Here it didn't make a big difference anyways, but probably should just kept that set so I can like Call by the Grave, target it anyways, and it wouldn't make a big difference. So here they're going to imperm us again, and I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. So yeah, I go ahead and just DPE pop so I can turn on my Widowmaker. And again, playing around Zeus a bit. And here again, it's like the same stuff. Like they're gonna go for like Break Sword into Zeus. Here we're just gonna go and Widowmaker because we have enough spells in their graveyard to just take it. And with Engage in hand and DPE, they know that they can't outgrind us, and we take this match. So we win this one 2-1. I know his commentary was pretty long, but that's kind of the thing with control decks, right? Is like, again, like I like to think about kind of the fundamental aspects of the game, and there's quite a lot to dissect if you want to look at each play. Like I could have gone into more depth even with like each of the plays, but like I think every single play in a control, not like this isn't a control mirror, but like involving a control deck, and like it's all very important. Obviously, like the same applies for common matchups actually, like more than people might realize. But I mean, every point of interaction like can affect the outcome of the game drastically, which goes without saying. But I think that it goes even more so for control decks, where I think the impacts are a lot more felt because like you can really tell when you're getting outgrinded and like when your resource game is not so hot. So I think this is a good showcase of that. I definitely did not play perfectly by any means, but I think that like I learned a lot. Like I learned a lot playing this match, but both about this deck and just playing like control decks in general, and like some more stuff about this format. But yeah, let me know again if you guys have any like comments or feedback or anything. Would love to hear it. But in any case, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you did enjoy, and until next time, I will catch you in the next video. See you guys.